My beautiful classmate threw a super hard question at me and said, "If you can solve this, you can do whatever you want with me," I answered in seconds. After pretending to be incompetent all this time. "If you can solve this problem, you can do whatever you want with me." It happened during our middle school reunion. A former classmate, who had grown into a stunning beauty, handed me a difficult math problem written in English. She used to bully me back in middle school. This was probably just an extension of that. This problem is called the Master Demon, and even in the International Mathematical Olympiad, very few got it right. But considering how much of a study nerd you were back then, you should be able to solve it in no time, right? Yeah, I solved it. Right, there's no way you could solve it. Wait, what did you just say? I said I solved it. When I showed her the answer, she looked frustrated and muttered, "It's correct." The room buzzed with surprise. What? How could you solve that? As my friend revealed who I really was, the murmur around us grew louder. So as promised, I'll do as I please. The color drained from her face at those words. This was what you'd call a reversal of fortune. I took her pale hand. My name is Colin, and I returned to my hometown after 10 years. I came back to attend my middle school reunion. To be honest, I don't have many fond memories from those days. After my father died in an accident, my already struggling family faced even more hardship. Seeing my mother work tirelessly, giving up all her pleasures for the sake of supporting me and my sister, I resolved to get a good job and make life easier for her. That's why I spent all my time studying in middle school. There was one classmate who looked down on me for it. Her name was Katie. She was the daughter of the CEO of Zell Publishing, a company that had expanded nationwide with its correspondence courses. She always found a way to make snide remarks at me. She'd say my belongings were second-hand or that I was a pitiful poor kid with no hobbies other than studying. She even hid my shoes, textbooks, and pencil case. There was no proof that Katie was the one behind it, so I kept it to myself, not telling my teachers or my mother. I heard Katie would be attending the reunion too. Honestly, I would have preferred to come up with an excuse like I had plans and skip it, but when my friend Samuel, who was organizing the event, said, "I really want to see you," I couldn't refuse. But then I reminded myself, it's okay. Before I returned to my hometown, I couldn't help but share my anxiety with my mother. She reassured me, "After 10 years, I'm sure everyone's grown up, so you probably won't hear any snide remarks. And now and even back then, you were a son I could proudly show to anyone. I know you studied hard for my sake, so hold your head up high." Remembering my mother's words, I straightened my back and made my way to the reunion venue. The reunion was held in the grand ballroom of a hotel near our old middle school. The place had recently been renovated and looked quite nice. The meal was served buffet style. After we all toasted, led by our organizer Samuel, everyone began to freely enjoy themselves, getting food or catching up with old friends. "Long time no see, Colin." As I was wondering what to do, Samuel came over to me. We clinked glasses and toasted again, just the two of us. "Sorry I haven't been able to meet up since we started working. My job keeps me so busy." "I'm busy too, so it's mutual." "Is that so, Colin?" Just as Samuel started to say something, I heard a voice, "Oh, isn't that Colin?" I turned to see an incredibly beautiful woman. I immediately recognized her as Katie. She was already pretty back in middle school, but she had grown even more stunning. "Long time no see. I went to a different high school, so it's been since then, right?" "Yeah, I moved away after that." "Oh, really? You had such good grades, but I figured you didn't come to the same high school because you couldn't afford the tuition. But I guess you could afford to move, huh?" Katie said, feigning surprise in a mocking tone. Standing beside her, her friend Lily snickered at me. Samuel furrowed his brows in irritation. "Katie, you might look prettier now, but it seems your heart hasn't changed." "Oh, thanks for the compliment, Samuel, but you might catch poverty if you hang out with him." "I won't catch anything like that." Now, Samuel, it's okay. I'm fine," I calmed Samuel down as he tried to defend me. Katie then turned her attention back to me. "You were still just as timid as ever. You couldn't even tell anyone that I was the one hiding your stuff back then, right?" "So it was you after all, Katie." Colin kept quiet because he said he didn't have any proof. "Well then, how about this? If you can solve this problem, you can do whatever you want with me." With that, Katie pulled out her phone and showed me the screen. After a few taps, Samuel peeked at it from the side, making a face like he had swallowed something bitter. "Whoa, the problems are in English. If you can't even read it, you can't solve it." Samuel's words drew the attention of the other classmates, who began gathering around to see what was going on. Katie smirked at the growing audience. "Exactly. And that problem is called the Master Demon, an extremely difficult one that even in the International Mathematical Olympiad had a very low correct answer rate. But considering how much you studied back in middle school, you should be able to solve it in no time, right?" "Yeah, I solved it." "Right? There's no way." "Wait, what did you just say?" "I said I solved it." I borrowed paper and a pen from the wide-eyed Samuel and wrote down the answer. I didn't want to use my phone as I didn't want anyone thinking I had cheated. Katie snatched the paper from me and stared at it intently. "It's correct." The crowd around us buzzed with excitement. "What? How could you solve that?" Lily exclaimed in shock. Everyone else seemed to share her disbelief, nodding in agreement. "Colin graduated from Oxford, so of course he can read English. Though even I'm surprised he solved such a difficult math problem." Seeing me hesitate to explain, Samuel answered for me. The voices of surprise grew even louder amidst the growing crowd. It was Katie who clenched her teeth in frustration. "Don't lie. There's no way a poor kid like you could have studied abroad, let alone at Oxford." Actually, the reason we moved was because my mom remarried. Her husband is Mr. Thompson, the CEO of Thompson Electronics. Thompson Electronics? That's a major company. As soon as I mentioned my father's company, the crowd became even more excited. I had given up on going to high school, but my dad saw my grades and suggested I aim for Oxford University. So instead of attending high school in Japan, I went to school over there, studied hard, and got into Oxford. So, Colin, what do you do now? I'm working at my dad's company as a consultant. I sometimes take on projects from other companies as well. Wow, that's impressive. As word spread, more and more people began to gather around. It was the first time being surrounded by so many people, and I felt dizzy from the experience. Hey, stop pushing. Katie, who was standing in front of me, was pushed away by the crowd. In the commotion, someone's drink spilled on her dress. Hey, who spilled their drink on me? My dress is ruined. This was expensive, you know. The people around began to keep their distance as Katie, her face flushed with anger, fumed. No one admitted to being responsible, so Katie glared sharply at those around her. Standing before her was Lily. She wore a mocking expression directed at Katie. Getting so upset over a little spill? You must be really stressed. I guess it makes sense considering your company sales have been plummeting lately. What are you talking about, Lily? Why are you? You know you're really not all that impressive. Colin always had better grades than you, yet you looked down on him and bullied him just like you did to anyone who was better than you. I've always hated that about you. You acted so high and mighty just because you were the daughter of a wealthy CEO. What did Daddy buy your way into high school and college too? Update, my beautiful classmate threw a super hard question at me and said, if you can solve this, you can do whatever you want with me, I answered in seconds. After pretending to be incompetent all this time. Katie's face turned a mix of red and pale at Lily's words. Seeing her reaction, Lily's smirk grew even wider. Didn't you just say that Colin could do whatever he wanted with you if he solved the problem? So, Colin, what will you do? She's got the looks, so maybe she's good for a one-time fling before you toss her aside. Katie's face drained of color at that. Lily then wrapped her arm around mine. But even for just one time, I'd be jealous if you're going to do that. Why not choose me instead? Unlike her, I'm confident I can actually satisfy you. I glanced at Katie. She was biting her lip and clutching the hem of her stained dress tightly. I had no fond memories of her, that's true, but still, I gently unwrapped Lily's arm from mine. She looked up at me in surprise. You say Katie bullied me, but you did the same, didn't you, Lily? You stood by her side laughing at me. To me, there's really no difference between the two of you. Now it was Lily's turn to go pale. Ignoring her, I took Katie's hand. Let's go, Katie. Ha! You said I could do whatever I want, right? Still looking dazed, Katie allowed me to lead her out of the venue. The sky was completely dark by the time we stepped outside. I could feel Katie shivering through the hand I was holding. We arrived at the nearest station. I turned to face her. Katie, take that off. What? What are you talking about? You pervert. Katie stepped back, her face bright red, realizing how that sounded. I hurried to explain. No, that's not what I meant. You'll catch a cold if you stay in those wet clothes. I was actually in England until yesterday, and my sister asked me to bring back some clothes. You're about the same height, so you can change into one of those. I retrieved the paper bag I had stored in the locker and handed it to Katie. After checking the contents, she took the bag and headed to the restroom at the station. I'm done changing. When Katie returned, I was taken aback by the outfit she had changed into. It had a deep V-neck that revealed a significant amount of cleavage. What, you're the one who gave me these clothes? Katie blushed and tried to cover her chest, and I quickly averted my eyes. I remembered seeing the outfit when I bought it, but I hadn't realized it was so revealing. Come to think of it, my sister had recently mentioned she had a boyfriend. I guess she intended to wear it on a date. The thought left me with mixed feelings as I turned back. Katie tugged gently at my sleeve, looking up at me with flushed cheeks. My heart skipped a beat. Hey, Colin, if you're up for it, do you want to go for another drink? Consider it a thank you for helping me change clothes. Well, if you're okay with it, Katie. We ended up at a small bar in the back streets near the station. There were hardly any other customers since none of our former classmates from the reunion were likely to come here. Katie could drink without worrying about being seen. After our drinks and snacks arrived, we sat in silence for a while. I wondered if I should say something, but I couldn't think of a topic as I was racking my brain. Katie suddenly downed her drink and let out a sigh. Colin, deep down, you must be laughing at me. But the girl who bullied you so much is now in such a miserable state. I looked over at Katie, who was smiling bitterly. She ordered a second drink and rested her chin on her hand. My father always wanted a son, but I was the only one born. Maybe that's why he raised me so strictly, always telling me to stay ahead of others, not to let being a girl hold me back. It worked when I was in elementary school, but when we got to middle school, you came along, and I couldn't stay on top anymore. I started putting you down and mocking your family situation to compensate. At the time, I really thought that made me superior, but today I realized how wrong I was. Katie's plum wine arrived. She took a sip. You saw Lily today, didn't you? I always thought she was a close friend, but to hear her talk like that. She was only around me because I was the CEO's daughter. I bet the others were the same. I never had a real friend, not one. Katie set her glass down gently, and her eyes glistened with unshed tears. My heart ached a little. I should have never gone to the reunion. If I hadn't, I wouldn't have had to hear Lily's true feelings or feel so low. I don't think that's true, Katie frowned at my words. You would have found out Lily's true feelings eventually. I think it's better that it happened today. The longer it takes, the more it hurts. And if you're at rock bottom now, there's only one way to go from here, up. Katie looked at me in stunned silence before a tear rolled down her cheek. Colin, you're such a good person to think you'd comfort someone like me. Her tears kept coming, showing no sign of stopping. I rummaged through my bag and found a crumpled handkerchief at the bottom, which I handed to her. Sorry, I didn't mean to start crying like this. It's fine. Better to cry when you need to. At that, she began crying even harder. The bar owner gave us a suspicious look, which made me a bit flustered. Maybe we should step outside. Some fresh air might help clear your head. Katie nodded, still clutching the handkerchief, and I let her out of the bar. The cool early summer breeze welcomed us. We walked toward Katie's house, avoiding the busier parts of the town. At first, she was still sobbing quietly, but as we walked, she calmed down and eventually stopped crying. She then glanced up at me with a hint of worry. Colin, aren't you going to catch a train? My house is in the opposite direction from the station, so you don't need to walk me all the way there. There's no way I'd let you walk home alone at night. I'll make sure you get home safely. Katie's eyes welled up again, but this time she didn't let the tears fall. We continued walking side by side before long we arrived in front of Katie's house. Thank you for walking me home, Colin. You're welcome. Good night, Katie. I turned to head back to the station when I felt a small tug on my sleeve. Do you think we could meet again sometime? Her cheeks were slightly flushed, and she looked at me with those still moist eyes, making me feel a sudden rush of warmth throughout my body. I mean, I still need to return your handkerchief and clothes. Understanding dawned on me. Oh, right. For a moment, I almost misunderstood your intentions. Sure, we'll meet again soon. Katie tilted her head slightly in curiosity at my response. At that moment, a voice called from inside her house. Katie, are you back? Oh, yes. Katie quickly turned and entered her house. Once I saw the door close behind her, I headed back into the night. A few days later, I found myself visiting the headquarters of Zellers Publishing. I had received a request from the company's CEO, Mr. Stewart, to lend my expertise as a consultant. So, you're Colin. I've heard quite a bit about you. You're the right-hand man of Mr. Thompson at Thompson Electronics, and you've successfully turned around several companies. We're counting on you to help us as well. Of course. As we shook hands firmly, the door to the CEO's office opened, and Katie walked in, saying, "Excuse me." Her eyes widened in surprise when she saw me. "Let me introduce you. This is my daughter, Katie. Katie, this is Colin from Thompson Electronics. I've hired him to help us with the company's turnaround. Please assist him in any way he needs." "Yes, of course." Katie was visibly shaken as we left the CEO's office. "Why didn't you tell me the other day that you were coming to my company?" "Sorry, I was under a confidentiality agreement." "Oh, I see. Well, I guess that can't be helped then. But I didn't bring your handkerchief today. Don't worry about it." When I smiled, Katie pouted in dissatisfaction. Is it just my imagination, or are her cheeks a bit red? "So, what position do you hold here?" "I'm the head of the digital marketing department. If I can improve our performance here, my father will finally recognize my abilities." I found her enthusiasm endearing, but then her gaze dropped to the floor. "But things aren't going well. A lot of people are leaving. What reasons do they give for leaving?" "I don't know. I don't ask. What's the point in keeping people who aren't motivated? It just lowers efficiency." I couldn't help but let out a sigh. Katie frowned at my reaction. "What if you have something to say? Just say it. It's not a complaint, just some advice from a consultant. You need to listen to your employees." "Katie, are you really seeing your employees? Working with them?" "No, I mostly work alone in my office. When I do interact with them, they either flatter me because I'm the CEO's daughter or they look resentful. It's always one or the other. That's part of the problem. Let's go take a look together."